After World War II, Europe was divided. The East was dominated by the USSR, while the West aligned with the United States and its allies. But one country stood out, Greece. Surrounded by communist-leaning neighbors and with its own strong communist resistance, Greece seemed destined to join the Eastern Bloc. Yet it didn't. Why? To understand this, we need to go back to 1943. By then it was becoming clear that Germany was losing and the USSR was emerging as a dominant force in Europe. Winston Churchill, while pleased with the fall of the Axis powers, wasn't thrilled about the idea of Europe becoming Soviet-dominated. He devised a bold, some might say, reckless plan: invade Italy via North Africa and then push into the Balkans to block Soviet advances. But by 1944, even Churchill recognized this idea was unworkable. Instead, Churchill turned to diplomacy. He struck a deal with Stalin, known as the Percentages Agreement. It was a simple, if controversial, concept to divide influence over Eastern and Southern Europe between the West and the USSR. Romania, fully Soviet. Bulgaria and Hungary, mostly Soviet. Yugoslavia, split 50-50. And Greece? It was to remain firmly in the Western sphere, though its Communist Party would still be allowed to participate in politics. But deals on paper don't always hold up in reality. Many of the countries in this agreement quickly fell to communist governments and turned away from the West. Why didn't Greece follow the same path? The answer lies in geography and strategy. For Britain, Greece was a critical piece of the Mediterranean puzzle. If Greece fell to communism, it could be used as a naval base to disrupt British shipping, a lifeline for their empire. This made a communist Greece a threat that Britain simply couldn't tolerate. To maintain control, the British supported anti-communist factions in Greece, even if it meant allying with some questionable groups, including former collaborators from the war. Interestingly, Stalin chose to stay out of this fight. He recognized that Britain considered Greece essential to its interests and would fight fiercely to keep it from falling under Soviet influence. A direct Soviet intervention could provoke a stronger response from the West, especially the United States, which was already watching closely. Greece's communists did receive some support from neighboring communist states like Yugoslavia and Albania. But when the USSR and Yugoslavia had a falling out, that aid dried up, leaving Greek communists isolated. At the same time, the United States stepped in with significant military and economic support to the Greek government, sealing the communists' fate. By 1949, the Greek Civil War was over, and Greece was firmly part of the Western capitalist world. Its strategic importance in the Cold War ensured it remained a key ally of the West, despite the communist wave that swept through its neighbors. History often hinges on key decisions and strategic locations, and Greece is a perfect example of how geography and diplomacy shaped the course of the Cold War.